Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another webinar that is hosted by IT for Less. My name is Amir Baidat, and you've probably known or heard about me in other webinars. So this is one of our new upcoming webinars regarding the compliance and governance for IT and AI related infrastructures. So we're going to cover a couple of key points that will be touch basing both of these scenarios, and then hopefully you can learn more for yourself and for your proactive strategy moving forward. So without further ado, I will just share my screen and we can go ahead and start with our AI compliance and IT governance for 2026, training teams to stay audit ready. So by the end of this webinar, participants will be able to understand the evolving AI compliance and regulatory landscape in 2026. You'll be able to identify key IT governance risks related to AI systems, align AI usage with audit, security, and compliance requirements, train teams to remain continuously audit ready to make sure that they're always compliant with the regulatory laws, and of course, applying practical governance frameworks and best practices. So the question raises in terms of our the beginning of the year and since a while ago. And the question is why AI compliance matters in 2026, especially in 2026, because the growth of AI is rapid. It has been the same case for a couple of years, but with each year moving more and more forward, it becomes a more rapid growth noticeable in many ways. So one of those reasons is that rapid adoption of AI across business operations means that most of the companies are adopting to AI now being the core instrument and tool for their work environment as well as their teams. They are using AI as their most essential tool throughout their regular commute or regular work days. The other thing is increased regulatory scrutiny and enforcement, higher risk of data misuse, bias, and privacy violations. And that comes into a lot of factors because some of these staff members or some of the teams that also comes into the role of regular users where they are sharing the private information, which despite of the AI solutions and the platforms mentioning that they are not processing that information for some cases like one of the popular ones. But despite of that fact, the information that we upload to the database, which in that case can be ChatGPT, Copilot, or any other AI platforms, the data is processed nonetheless. So as much as we would like to hear that it's not, it's either way being processed, and that becomes a large and an expanded exposure for each corporation when the staff members or the teams are not really acknowledged in that fact and they keep sharing the information that is confidential or is specific to the corporation's local environment. And then the other thing is AI-driven decisions impacting customers, employees, and finances. Auditors also are starting to review AI models, data sources, and controls. So it's becoming a normal for their monthly check. So what auditors look for in AI systems? Auditors increasingly assess things like AI governance, structure, and ownership, model transparency and explainability, data quality, privacy, and consent. So in data quality, that comes into many simplified structural understanding. So the data quality can be whether if the AI's generated content was up to the expected performance, and if that generated input or output was bringing any value in that scenario. Because for every output that we send, for every input that we send to the AI itself takes a lot of resources to process it. Hence, it also has to matter whether if the resources that were used to make an output of our request meant something at all, or if it was just a waste of the resources used. Privacy also comes into that matter, and so is consent. We have risk assessments and control documentation, monitoring, logging, and incident response. So in this case, auditors do tend to also check for the performance of AI and the unusual or the behavior that is not expected from AI, which also comes into the roles. If we deploy AI agents that are specifically built and meant to be performing specific amounts of tasks, and if they are performing or not, that is something that the auditor would be checking and monitoring the performance, whether if it's consistent or if it's having a differential types of outputs for whatever it's assigned to complete the tasks on. So there are AI risks that impact compliance, and that will happen in many cases and for a long time, unless if it comes to the perfection, which we as well know that nothing is perfect. And fortunately, the same thing goes for AI. So that can be the unauthorized or unapproved AI tool usage within the corporations, which can harm the corporate information and can result in data exposure and data breach, which will result in a much more expensive damage, because there can be corporations that hold millions of data of their customers, and if something happens to that database, then the damage can be worth of trillions in that matter. Biased or unethical AI decision making, that can come into many factors. If the IT team does not really control the permissions that is being given to the AI agents or the AI chatbots in general, so that has to be complied with as well. Inadequate data governance and access controls also falls into that point, and lack of model validation and change of management. And finally, it's poor documentation and audit trail. So if we even if we deploy an agent, it would be ideal, and in most cases, it would be a requirement for the documentation of the so-called AI agent and its purpose of the execution. So if at one point there has to be a change in that AI agent, or if there is an unusual behavior coming in from that AI agent, we can always refer to the documentation and see how it was set up initially and find out if it's malfunctioning, or if we want to upgrade it, then what would be the next steps. And that where is the auditors come into the perspective of checking and ticking the boxes. So as a matter of the IT governance in the age of AI, the IT side has to ensure that there is clear accountability for AI systems, alignment with business objectives of the corporation that we're talking about, which is in question, risk-based decision making, and consistent policies, controls, and oversight. And all of this comes into the monitoring. So if there is proper monitoring and there's proper ways of handling the incidents and having clear incident response strategy, then most of the times there has to be a plan for all of these scenarios. And if that is the case, then there should not be any of the problems that we are covering. And AI governance must integrate with existing IT and security governance. So year by year and by month, the IT staff and the IT departments are equipped with AI tools and AI functions. All of that has to be put into the policy of the existing framework. So in that case, it also has to be revised as far as we go for the whole policy, and we have to adjust it based on what is being integrated in terms of the AI tools. So that also has to be taken into account, and that's where the auditors come into the scope of checking whether if the current policy is updated to accommodate and to welcome the new IT changes that will be integrating with AI or not. So that's one of the key spectrums that have to be kept in mind. As far as we go for the governance framework components, a strong AI governance framework can include AI usage policies and acceptable use standards, defined roles like owners, reviewers, approvers, risk assessment and classification processes to ensure that there is clear classification for each database or for each folder, for each spectrum, for each scope of the whole environment, the digital environment. Model lifecycle management, and of course, continuous monitoring and reporting in any case. As far as we go for roles and responsibilities, so that will have to be executive leadership, oversight, and accountability for what is being controlled with compliance and governance. As far as we go for IT and security teams, that is something that they have to take control of, which is obviously is controls, monitoring, and infrastructure. Compliance and legal, regulatory alignment and audits, and business users in that case have to be responsible and approved for AI usage. That comes with training, reminders, acknowledgments of the usage, the proper usage, the principles. That depends on the corporate that we're talking about. For key data governance controls, that comes into data classification and labeling, as we mentioned earlier, access controls and least privilege. And it also has the similarities with zero trust model because after all, we cannot depend completely on AI's control in that case. As a matter of fact, we have to keep it under radar and monitored to make sure that there is no unnecessary data breaches or similar. Data sourcing and consent validation, data retention and deletion policies, and continuous data quality monitoring. As far as we go for the model lifecycle management, so to stay audit ready, organizations must manage model design and approval, training data documentation, testing validation and bias checks, deployment approvals, ongoing performance and drift monitoring. And that also, all of that is in one picture being cycled through each uh, quarter basis for each department and for each groups. So that has to be in terms of the model design and approval. That comes into if there is any change in the AI structure or AI features, it would have to first be tested and approved for usage. Despite of it being previously approved, there could be changes that are not suitable for the current compliance structures for the organization. Training data documentation, that of course is if we are handling the data and we are deploying an AI agent that is taking care of our databases for reference or the documentation that we want to handle. In that case, it would have to be monitored as well. And of course, testing, validation, and bias checks. That also is in terms of the changes that we come with each AI updates. Like for reference, if we're using ChatGPT on the version 5.1.2, in the next month, 2 to 3 months, there is a new update which is ChatGPT 5.2. In that case, we would still have to test it and validate that if there are any red flags that are within the new update, and whether if we have to strategize our deployment and if we need to change anything in our compliance and governance structure. Deployment approvals, ongoing performance and drift monitoring, that of course comes into the whole scope of monitoring the AI agent deployments. The essential documentation includes for audit and evidence. Of course, the tip is if it's not documented, it doesn't exist to auditors. So all of those things, including the AI deployments and IT related policies and governance, all of that has to be monitored. All of that has to be documented properly so that when there when the time comes for the audit checks to be presented and requested from the organizations, they are able to comfortably work with it, provided in time and based on the deadlines that were given to them. So the essential is AI policies and procedures, risk assessments and impact analysis. Things always have to be documented. Model change logs and approvals. So again, we bring an example that if there has been a change in the AI agent or AI model, and keeping the logs optionally, security and privacy controls, training and awareness records to ensure that if we are deploying the AI usage for a specific department, and we need to make sure that those staff members are already equipped with the knowledge of the proper usage in order to ensure that there is no private documentation leak or breach. As far as we go for training the teams themselves for AI compliance, the effective training programs should educate staff on AI risks and responsibilities to teach them that there is a key criteria that should be followed to make sure that there is no confusion or miscommunication throughout the teams. Clarify acceptable versus prohibited AI use to make sure that the AI is not used in the non-focused or non-designed way. Provide role-based compliance training. So if you're deploying the AI-based models for a specific department, then it would have to be suitable. The training would have to be suitable for them, as opposed to if you were deploying the specific AI agent for the IT team, then the training would have to be different. So of course it depends on the department that you're deploying it for and how you want to deploy it. And also including real world AI risk scenarios like data leaks, data breaches, all of that can be brought into an example. Be updated regularly as regulations evolve. So always have to keep in mind that AI is updating day by day, and that can also be minute by minute. And as annoying as it could be, we still have to make sure that our documentations and regulations are updated and checked on frequent basis. So as far as we go for monitoring and continuous compliance, the AI system performance monitoring has to be taken into account to make sure that the so-called AI agent or so-called AI features that we have deployed into the environment are acting as they should be and performing the tasks that they were built for and designed for in the correct areas. Regular compliance and risk reviews, automated logging and alerts, periodic policy and control updates. Again, as AI evolves, we have to make sure that our policies also evolve to match and suit the current requirements. And of course, is ongoing vendor and third-party assessments. Make sure that whoever you are partnering with also are compliant and up to date with the AI things, as far as we go for services that we might be renting from them, also have to be up to date. As far as we go for an AI incident response and AI failures, this comes into many many scenarios where we can expect AI to fail. But despite of all of that, we should always be prepared to cover things like detection and escalation procedures, roles and communication channels, regulatory notification requirements, root cause analysis, and corrective and preventive actions. All of that has to be kept in mind to make sure that even if our intended AI model fails, we still have the checks to perform to evaluate where it failed and how it failed. Because as we all know, LLMs are constantly learning, constantly evolving. We need to make sure that even if they fail, we can correct them and fix the roadblocks that they're running into and that causes the failures. And then there are common compliance gaps to avoid. Things like no formal AI governance program that makes sure. So in this scenario, there is no documentation, no governance, no updates, no regulatory laws within the organization, and that will come into future problems, even if it doesn't come as an attention to the IT or to the organization at the moment. When the time comes for the auditors to check, there might be some panics going on because no one prepared for it and no one was expecting to have those things ready. Lack of executive ownership also falls into the first way, which is no formal AI governance program. Incomplete or outdated documentation, as we mentioned, as AI goes into the evolution, so does our documentation, which has to keep up and update accordingly. And of course, one-time training with no refreshers and ignoring third-party AI risks. So we cannot completely depend on the third-party AIs because we also have to make sure that there are risks that can be neglected into that mind. We also have to pay attention to which third-party AIs we're working with, make sure that whoever we are renting those services from are also compliant with the regulatory uh, policies, and they're also updated on the latest AI. So this is a reference, but of course, the roadmap to AI compliance. Again, this is a reference for you to just to understand, have a little bit of a high level picture of what you can use for yourself for short term, like from the very beginning to the 3 months of preparation, can be that you can start identifying AI systems and the usage for those AI products, have a clear understanding of what what perspective of AI is being used within the company, define ownership and policies. You have to define the policies for the AI if you have not already, and make sure that there are clear policies for the usage. And then as the cycle goes, you can start implementing governance controls, train teams, and document processes. And then once you're halfway in, you can, for long term, you can proactively start doing the mature monitoring and automation, continuous audit readiness. As far as you go for the automation, things that you've been doing manually, even with AI, can be can be automated completely. So the only thing that you would be doing on your end is to monitor for the progress and monitor for any errors. So what are the key takeaways from this webinar? AI compliance is a core IT governance responsibility. Auditors expect transparency, control, and evidence. And it also comes to the fact that the organizations must be ready for that kind of auditing. And of course, if you're partnering with third-party vendors that provide you the AI services, you also have to work with them to make sure that they provide the required things for your documentation. Training teams is critical to staying audit ready. Continuous monitoring beats last minute audits. And finally, is strong governance enables responsible AI innovation. And thank you very much. I am hoping to see you very soon with our next topic. I really hope that you have learned something from this webinar and from the previous webinars. You are always welcome to visit our previous webinars on our YouTube channel, which is the IT for Less channel. You might find something that you can learn from those webinars. But of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us through LinkedIn, to our email, to our phone number, or just visit itforless.com and you can always find something helpful for you. But I hope that you guys enjoyed that. Thank you very much, and thank you for participating and listening to our webinar. Thank you very much.